And you know what time it is, folks. That's right. It's time for more In the Hot Box with Doc Real. Yeah, we still bumping over here. Why are we still bumping? Because, woo, it's time to fight. Fight. This lesson is all about fighting. Yeah. So we started out with a little push button entertainment music. One of our family here. So, but we're gonna skip over to another song by Push Button. You all know it well. This song plays all the time in my broadcast, so you know it well. It's the intro song. This is my theme song. So, but we're back here because we got to fight, folks. We got to fight. I hope y'all can hear me. Yes, I'm pretty sure y'all can hear me. But we got to fight out there because if we're not fighting, we're not doing what we need to do. And if we're not doing exactly what we need to do, we're not making it to where we need to go. So this lesson today is called Fight for Inspiration because we got to fight to be inspired. We got to fight to keep moving on. And if you like what you hear in this lesson or you like what you hear in any of the lessons, make sure you reach down and click that follow button if you're watching live here on Mixer. And if you're watching on YouTube or listening to the podcast, you can subscribe to the podcast or on Apple Music, or you can go ahead and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube. And if you subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, don't forget to click that bell right on the other side for future notifications. You want to do that so you want to know when new shows are coming out, which come out every week right now, but I might start putting out more depending on what I'm doing here. And my plosives are popping, so let me back up a little bit and get ready because I will see you soon as we get ready for more In the Hot Box. This episode, once again, is called A Fight for Inspiration. Stand by, as I'm going to replay my track one more time. Yeah. Look at us up on Doc Real TV. You know what time it is, folks. That's right. It's time for more In the Hot Box with Doc Real. I'm Doc. I'm here to talk to you all about fighting for inspiration. We got to fight for inspiration. Yes, we got to fight for it. Why? Why do we got to fight for it? Well, we live in a world that has us seeing and being involved in so many different things. Like I talked about this before, how we're all involved in the rat race, all right? That we're in this system of how we keep maneuvering and keep going according to some kind of like caged animal syndrome, you know, and being that we're like caged animals and we're living this life of city caged animals, we tend to fall into certain types of psychological patterns. And some of those patterns have to do with how much we are attracted to social media, especially social media. And there are many people out there that watch and look at social media and take the information that they accumulate from social media, that the media that is being streamed to them, and they take that and take it for gold, and they take it for granted, and they take it as the way life should be. And a lot of people don't realize that some of us are out here lying. Many of us are out here lying to each other. And we have to fight for what's right. We have to fight to inspire. We have to fight to be inspired. And the only way we can fight to be inspired is by there being some truth in what people do. And there are many people who put out their truth, and some people put out a little bit too much truth. Sometimes I've done it too. But I mean, when there is enough truth out there, we are inspired more to be who we are, and we are able to fight on to be who we plan or dream to be. So I think it's important that we got to fight for our right to be inspired. We got to fight for our inspiration, or as I'm saying this lesson, fight for inspiration. Because if you don't fight for inspiration, then you won't fight to find information about what you need to do or where you need to go. You see what I mean? Because finding information takes education. And I see a lot of people dropping off the face of education saying they don't need it. I see a lot of people saying they don't need to have any type of, I'm looking for my water, be educated in any type of way. The problem with that is that I believe that you're wrong. I could be wrong, but I believe I don't even want to say I could be wrong. I believe that you're wrong because backing out of it is there is no backing out of it. No matter how you look at it. I don't care if you go to school, I've said this before, or if you get it offline, you need to be educated in some kind of way. And finding information takes that education. You got to know how to research. I keep talking about you got to know how to research because I'm always researching. We are not always going to find everything we need on social media. We're not going to be able to search through social media and get what's actually right. Sometimes we need to research without the internet. Sometimes we need to research out in the world. We need to actually physically go out. Not all research has to do with us looking stuff up online. And I'm a number one culprit of that because I will look up stuff online in a heartbeat. People tell you that all the time. They see me, oh yeah, you know what? Let me double check. Because I'm getting older and I'm forgetting some of the things I've learned in the past, but also because I feel like I want to be right about what I'm putting out there. But as I've said before, sometimes being right is wrong. Sometimes it takes us going out there and actually putting our hands in it because the right answer may not be the right answer for everybody. And so sometimes we need to get out there and be inspired by nature because nature can inspire us. There are many things out there that I've seen through nature, picked up through nature, just by being out there. I mean, this morning, for instance, I went out early this morning, took a walk. I'm sure if you watch my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, you saw that I put on there a post of me walking to the store this morning. I just wanted to walk. Got up, as I usually do early, and decided, hey, it's quiet out on the street. Why don't I go out there and walk? And you know what? While I'm out there, why don't I talk to the people? You know what I mean? Because there's not a lot of people up in LA at that time. But there are a lot of people up around the world at that time. The world is still buzzing. You see what I mean? That's what I mean when I talk about, getting up early. You get involved in all that stuff that the world has to offer already before you even wake up in the morning. I mean, before you even get out. And once you're involved in all that stuff that the world already has to offer, what happens is, and I love this ascot. Today it was a little chilly, so I went back to ascot, and went back to black. Plus, I wanted to make sure I'm getting light on this shoulder. It wasn't breaking me last time before. But once you get out early in the morning and you know what the world has to offer, and you really can sense that, and you really can pick up on that, then what you do is you start to see where you can move forward in life. I mean, I was up early enough and I realized that I can stream some music by Push Button Entertainment. I mean, I represent Push Button Entertainment. They're my sponsor on a lot of things, but I can stream their music live. I don't have to put it on YouTube and get a ban for streaming their music on YouTube, but I can stream it live on here because they are my number one sponsor. And I always say that they've been my number one sponsor, Push Button Entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Push Button ENT, whichever way you want to call it. I always say push button, baby. If you look on my IMDb, I'm quoted as saying push button, baby. Why? Because it's Push Button. Push Button Entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Edric Stitz, ES on the beats, the producer extraordinaire. And so I don't have to just stay with one sort of programming or look out for just one type of programming as this web show. I can allow it to accumulate time and interest by adding something I think is interesting. I think that other people find interesting, that they may be looking for. Beats that they may have never heard before, created by a guy I know that I've worked with and I've actually lived in the same community with. And guy I've been partnered with to do this type of stuff. I even made a small company off of it, Push Button Republic. You know what I mean? So, this is a long story that goes back, but you know what I'm saying? Push Button is mainly Edric Stitz and, a group of us who've been together. If you look out there, you might see Skrilla Scrooge. You might see Louis V. Of course, me, Doc Rio, you might see me involved. Not as much as you see Louis V. And you've seen Skrilla Scrooge, and you maybe seen some other players. Even Brandon Barnett, I think, was out there. All America, double A apparel. Excuse my language. I said the F word. Whoops. I'm gonna have to bleep that out. been one of those. I was like, dang, I can't remember this cat's name. Sorry about that. I did not mean to say the F word on teen chat. This is a teen program, so I need to make sure I maintain that. So at the same time, been one of those weeks where you just like you're having a good time. And earlier I was doing something and I was talking on 18 and over, so that's probably why it slipped. I don't usually talk on 18 and over, so I definitely want to apologize for that, especially since there may be some teens here. And so I'll make sure it's bleeped on the YouTube rebroadcast. So anyway, sometimes nature can inspire you, and part of nature inspiring you also has to do with getting out in the open and being around people. See, I know sometimes that people think I'm reclusive, but they don't see me out and about early in the morning and getting out and starting to get involved with people, and then being in places I need to be early in the morning and being involved with people early in the morning. And so some people don't wake until this afternoon. I can't help it that that's their lifestyle. And so by the time I see them, I done already had a full day, and they're talking about you don't get out, but I've been out. Where you been? So I hear that often by people, and I'm like, well, hey, I've been out, now I'm going back. You know what I'm saying? I'm going back because I got either still some homework to do because I'm taking a couple of classes to, try to improve myself for my doctoral entry. I got to have foreign language level 5, so trying to level up to there. And also, as well as I'm being a part of the journalism community while I'm working at KC Sun. Being a part of the journalism community is important because that's the community that forces you to write. That's the community that forces you to look at things the way you need to see them and forces you to get in a pattern. Like I was talking about education, finding information needs a pattern, and journalism requires research, and journalism requires you searching through things and putting things together. And even broadcast is even smaller, but it still requires a bit of research and a bit of understanding of how broadcast is delivered. And me, I may make mistakes all the time in my live broadcast, especially when I am doing it on the camera and doing it for radio. Sometimes I forget to describe certain things and get in detail about certain things that I may be doing or may have done. And it may sound confusing to those people who just are listening. And I definitely want to make sure I dig in and be more descriptive in the future. So part of this contact is person-to-person contact that inspires ideas like that and inspires that intellect to say, okay, look, now I can give more music to people because people like to hear music. Now I can give more of myself to people by giving my person-to-person contact and delivering those conversations with people and providing more performing and visual arts and more architecture. So, things about architecture, because architecture is just beautiful. These are the elements of person-to-person contact that I enjoy being a part of. Performing in visual arts, architecture, which is art to me, and conversation, which is communication. All these together to me feel like a form of communication. They feel like that form of person-to-person contact, because when a person is creating architecture, they are trying to communicate a message through their what they're building. They're trying to communicate design through what they're building. When a person is performing visual and performing, creating performing arts, creating visual and performing arts, doing performing arts. I didn't know how to say that right. They are communicating a message in some kind of way. And when we are conversing, we're doing the same thing. We're communicating a message, or as some would say, a frame that we've built of how we see the world, of how we see our lifestyle, or how we see things and how we may see the way things are supposed to be. And so sometimes our frame may not be the right frame for what we're doing. It may not be the right frame for where we're going. It may not be the right frame for many different things. And that's where what I was saying before, that sometimes being right is wrong because our frame can direct us in a sense. Our frame can steer us down the wrong path. Our frame can tell us the road less traveled is too bumpy and too hard, and I should be walking on the lean road. And then we get a mentor that comes in with a different frame, and that frame tells us, no, your road needs to be that bumpy road, because on that bumpy road, you'll be stronger at the end of that road. You'll be able to mold and shape your life better, and you'll know more about yourself by the end of that road. You see, because even when you go on the other road, you end up coming right back to that bumpy road, because that easy road ends up, all paths lead back to the hard road. All paths always lead back to the hard road, because life is not an easy thing. Life is never going to be easy, especially if we believe it's easy. Now, there may be a pattern to life being easy, life doesn't have to be all pain. There may be a balance of having good, like I was telling somebody else, we have this balance of, having bad things happen to us, and we have, we can have this extreme of bad things happening to us, and we can have this extreme of good things happening. So I did it opposite of what I usually do. Bad things, good things. I don't know which side is which. Actually, you can flip-flop them either way, but we may have an extreme. So if we got a lot of good stuff going on for us, expect some big bad to come. If you got a lot of bad stuff happening, expect some big good to come at some point. But if we're in the middle, we're finding a balance between that, and the bad is not so bad, and the good is not that big good, but yet and still there's good there, there's bad there, and we're still pressing on through it. It may be easier road in the middle, and we may not be able to live our whole life in the middle. We're going to go from that middle point to that extreme point at some point. But finding balance in our life is the main thing. As I was talking about in Balance to Act, previous episode that we had here. So I want to take this idea to, we have to, as we're on our roads, we have to pay attention to two things. We have to pay attention to our purview. So for those who don't know, that's anything in our direct line of sight, anything in our direct view, and in our peripheral, anything in our side view, because it's this whole span. This is the whole reason why we have our sight in this road. And I'm talking about this in a different light, because I think a lot of times our purview and our peripheral in other things affect each other. Like, we'll miss our peripheral and only get focused. We get laser focused in on one thing. I know I've been laser focused in. Sometimes I have to stop people and say, look, I have to stop for a second, turn around and do this real quick. Okay, now I can get back to my peripheral, and now I can see what's going on out here, because I needed to focus on that one thing. As we talked about before in the book, one thing, get back to that. If you want to know more about that, you can check it out in another lesson, a previous lesson, when I talk about one thing. But in this lesson, I want to focus more on us being more aware. Situational awareness is a hard thing to control when we have too much of it. Situational awareness, not having it can hurt us. So we got to be able to find a balance with it, because you're either going to get the extreme, not paying attention to it, and then all of a sudden something bad happens and then you're tore up, or we're going to get I'm paying too much attention to it and I'm seeing too much of the good and too much of the bad at once, and that's affecting my psychological standpoint. That's affecting how I see the world. That's affecting how I try to do things. And when I go out there to try to fake it till you make it, which we all have to fake it till we make it, when we go out there and fake it till or make it, and we're not paying attention to our purview as well as our peripheral, then we end up lost, because it takes a balance of both in order to fake it so that we can pay attention. It takes, for us to really get out there, we have to pay attention to what we need to do and start to research into how we need to do it. You can step into something and fake it a little bit, but you can only fake it for so long. You only got so much time to fake it before you actually got to do something to make it happen. You know what I'm saying? It isn't like you can fake it for the rest of your life. So you got to be inspired by something, or find inspiration, or fight for inspiration that allows you to make it. Because otherwise you can fake it and fake yourself right back out the door. You know, so if you fake it till you make it, you got to be engaged, because being engaged allows you to, I want to say, draw and share with other people. Share with other people your experiences, your energies, your conversations, your aspects, your point of view. And I say conversations because you're going to converse with them, whether it be through art, music, architecture, dance, singing, whatever you are doing. You could be building furniture. You're communicating something through that furniture. You could be building communities. You're communicating something through that community. Whatever you're out there doing, whatever you're out there sharing, share it with the people from the heart. You know, there's so much out there, and it's easy for us to say, yes, we're sharing from the heart. You know, I've done it. I've been known. I fight myself on a daily basis because I want to be so honest with this community. I want to share everything with this community, but I know that if I share too much, some people won't be able to take it. If I share too much, I mean, I'm sharing too much in some people's aspect right now, they can't take it, you know? And so I have to share to a limit so that I can give people bite-sized chunks. You know, and these lessons, these webinars are never going to be in bite-sized chunks. The lessons are going to be in bite-sized chunks. These webinars are for people to watch whenever they have time to sit back and watch and find the meat inside of it. And then look for that meat in my lesson series. You know, look for that meat in the lesson series I build, or somebody else's lesson series, or look for that meat online, because that meat is already out there. I'm not giving you anything that's not already out there. My name ain't Ty Lopez. I ain't going to lie to you and say I made it up when I didn't make it up. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that he lied and said that, but I mean, people have gotten the perception that Ty Lopez has said he's created these things when all he did was get information from other people. But in all actuality, we all get information from other people. We all do things from a different perspective. When it comes to gaining knowledge, we have to research first before we even know what we need to do, before we even get to the pattern of doing what we need to do. So we didn't research unless we got the information from somebody else before us. So anybody saying that they got there on their own knowledge is lying. Anybody who said they got there self-made is lying. Unless all of a sudden they won the lottery and then put that money to use, and then they still weren't self-made because they took money from other people, invested into something else. So they weren't self-made, they won the lotto. So there is no self-made millionaire, because you can't do it without other people. We can't do anything in this world without other people. Anybody saying they are doing anything without other people, they wrong. They lying. They lying to you. But there is an acceptable measure of lying. That's why we have to fight for inspiration, because in fighting for inspiration, we're fighting for what's right. We're fighting for what's true. We're fighting for the knowledge of what we need to do. You know, there's always going to be forces against us. Always going to be forces against us, pushing against us, the haters, the naysayers. They're always going to make inspiration hard to find. They're always going to push lies against you. I mean, I've told little small lies. I know I have, to people not knowing the truth about something. You know what I mean? And to be honest, I found out it was the truth later, but I lied to somebody in advance before I even knew it was the truth. See, I assumed it was the truth, and I told them that that's what it was. I found out it was the truth, but it was a lie because I was assuming. You see, I was considering that acceptable. It didn't feel like I was lying, but I didn't know the truth. I may have another story of that later on down the line. Don't strive to be perfect. Don't strive to be perfect. Strive to be great. Once again, don't strive to be perfect. Strive to be great. Don't strive to be perfect. Strive to be great. I say that with... I don't say that just lightly. I say that with with the power of knowing things from what I've seen before. And I want to say that because I say that because I know that's what we need to do, but I don't know that's what we need to do. But that's what example has shown me what we need to do. So for me, I'm taking example and I'm going with that. Senders to Scream, please refrain from using foul language. Please. Or you get banned. Sorry to tell you that. You know what I mean? Just because you don't see a moderator in here, don't think that there are any moderators around. And don't think that there are any bots taking care of stuff too. So but you know. No, that's not a thick neck. That's not a thick neck. It's actually what it is. And see, it's in the stream anyway because I wanted people to see what people are saying. So it's in the stream anyway. But it's not a thick neck. It's because I got a nice one. My neck isn't that thick. Shoot. Oh man. I can't believe that. Anyway, so let's just go on with talking about, it's funny that we're talking about that because we're talking about striving to be perfect and a thick neck. It dawns on me that there is no right or wrong neck. I don't even have a thick neck. If you saw me in person, you wouldn't even think I have a thick neck. You know what I mean? You'd be like, man, he's got a thin neck. Actually, he's kind of thinner than he looks. So, you know what I mean? But that's okay. I'm being a scout and I'm representing cavalry. So, but with that being said, people strive too much to be perfect. You know what I mean? I know some people that have thick necks. I know some people who have thick bodies. I know some people who are doing great things out there and they're winning things that you would dream of getting. They're winning things that you would dream of, or doing things that you would dream of doing. I remember, what was that? Jay-Z something about people rapping about stuff that I really do. You know what I'm saying? Hey, that whole idea that there are people dreaming to do this one thing and they'll be on social media saying that they're doing this one thing, but then when you really see their life, they really ain't doing nothing. I've been there. I've done that. I'm always trying to get higher. And so the steps you see me doing, if you see me on social media doing any steps, the steps you see me doing is because I remembered at that time to record, because I got a lot of things I'd be doing. I'd be like, dang, I should have put that on social media. But I'd be doing so much that I don't know where I might be from moment to moment when it comes to certain things, because I might be on the radio, I might be on TV, I might be producing something, I might be researching for somebody to produce something else. Because that's how we work in this world of journalism. We work together, we work as a team. And so when you're out there, you're striving to be great, not perfect, but you're striving to be great, a great member of a team, a great part of a community, a great part of something. You know what I mean? And I think people forget that it's like this, okay? I look at this example. This is a big example right here. McDonald's has an ad campaign out there right now that they're putting out there. And it's funny because Burger King put out this Burger King commercial about no preservatives. We've all seen it, right? The Burger King commercial about no preservatives is trying to say that we are better for you if you eat this type of fast food, because we're not putting any preservatives in this type of fast food. We're not causing your body any damage along the line, any cancerous thing along the line. Burger King is basically saying we're healthier and better for you. McDonald's responds by saying this. All right. McDonald's makes their commercial in response, and they're like, we are not perfect, but we taste great. That's their newest commercial. Their newest they got 6 spots on this ad campaign, and it's of the 2020's McDonald's ad campaign, and they focus on imperfection. They focus on imperfection so much that ironically they say it's perfect made perfecter. And what did that do? Got more attention. You see, McDonald's has never been about the idea of being perfect. They've been about the idea of being great. We can pump out more things to people and it tastes great. We don't have to be perfect. You've seen that new commercial. I'm sure you've seen it. If you haven't seen that new commercial, you need to actually stop just watching internet and get you some internet TV, because there is an aspect that makes this funny. There is, if we are just going to pay attention to online media and not pay attention to outside of online media, then we're going to miss out on what's really going on in the world and not understand our medium as streamers. As streamers, it's important for us to understand how our medium is reflected from, the previous mediums. How our medium is reflected from what we've been able to do in the previous mediums. And it's important to understand that we have companies like McDonald's that can come up with a prank like this, grab attention, drive grammandos crazy. And if you don't know what a grammando is, that's a grammar commando. And a grammar commando would basically go nuts on that. It's perfect made perfecter. Perfecter. I can't even say it. Perfecter. You know what I mean? And what we really find out is that the truth of the matter is that more of us in each and every one of our ways focus on imperfection. Just like Sinister Scream right here said that I got a thick neck. You know, when all I'm wearing is an ascot that makes it look like I have a thick neck. You see, my neck is that thick. But this ascot keeps my neck warm. This ascot keeps me chilling. You know what I mean? So the truth of the matter is, that's the imperfection that he focused in on, not the perfection of the ascot, a tie that's not really a tie. It's more like a luxury, a relaxing scarf, you know, that doubles over as a tie. But that's okay. I didn't go for perfection. I went for greatness. You see what I'm saying? I went for, hey, this is a great ascot. I actually, when I first tried to do it, I tried to go for perfection and get that look. And I said, you know what? Forget the look. Put it on, wear it. It's for warmth around my neck. I like the way it feels and it represents my cavalry. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just on there. It's warm. It does what it does. That's what an ascot does. You know, now, when it comes to a regular tie, yes, I like a double Windsor. I'm tired of seeing people too lazy just to tie a single Windsor and pull it down and that stuff's off to the side. You're a professional, but your tie leaning off to the side like this. Do a double Windsor so it leans straight, so it's perfect, folks. And I know y'all got time for it now. If you just a little bit old and you're a politician and you just can't keep doing that, tie a thick one then. Don't worry about if it's thin. Tie a thick one then. Call it what it is. Put a tie pin on it and call it what it is. It look great with a thick one. People don't like it when I say that. Anyway, let's keep it going there. People focus too much on imperfection, so we continually must fight for the right reasons. I say, let's not fight to be imperfect. Let's not fight to be perfect either. Let's fight for what makes our communities better. Let's fight what makes the person next door to us, the people next door to us, the lifestyles around us, and the people we love to be around much better. Let's fight for what's good. Even if we're stuck in a world of people lying and being deceitful and doing strange things. You know what I mean? And I say that because, all right, look what's happening out there to universities. All right. Universities and admissions fraud. All right. Let's get into some news, things that people miss out on because they haven't been paying attention to the news because they're only watching stuff online. Now, I was lucky because what I found out through this communication fraud, it makes it harder for a person like me to get a master's degree at USC. But then, after thinking about it a little bit longer, I came to a conclusion. Because I recently read this over the air at KCSN Newsroom 88.5 Latin Alt HD3. Exactly. When I was there on the radio, I pulled out this little article, it was a short article about USC, and it said USC is offering free tuition to students and families who make $80,000 or less income a year. And right now I make less than that. I don't make $80,000 a year. That's perfect. Right now I fall in that category. You see, it's a way for them to find talent, because schools that I go to, like CSUN, California State University Northridge, schools that I'm getting my degree from, or about to get a degree from right now, waiting for my degree. Actually, I need to put in some more paperwork next week. I need to see Dr. Holmes, get him to sign something, put in some paperwork so I can get my degree. But anyway, getting my degree, it's all about this idea that schools need to find talent. You see what I mean? And schools like CSUN tend to get a lot more talent. And what I mean by that is you get talented individuals that want to push hard at work. And when you go to try to get in a private school, it's so hard to get in a private school. People got to cheat to get in a private school. As we see here, so many rich people are paying to get their kids in the private school that kids that are able to get into private schools can't get in. I was watching this on American Greed. You know what I'm saying? And if USC, after this scandal, is able to find espionage, after the scandal is able to move up in the rankings because they're finding talent instead of actually doing as an institution, instead of being involved in some kind of scandal, then yeah, they're going to grow up the ranks. In American Greed, what it says, in American Greed, I was watching this episode about something that just came out the news, the Lori Loughlin scandal. And not just the Lori Loughlin scandal, we talking about, what was that guy's name? Savers or something about that. I can't remember his name. I should know his name. But it's a scandal that has to do with, I want to say his name is Salt Peter, but I don't know why I want to say that. Anyway, it has to do with a scandal that stemmed around rich people paying to get into high-profile institutions, namely USC, specifically Lori Loughlin, and specifically this one guy was caught and admitted to all the charges and was able to get, according to the news, according to American Greed, I want to say American Greed, because they said that Lori Loughlin and a host of other people pled guilty to these charges. And, you know, I know how hard it is to get into USC. I know a lot of people who know how hard it is to get in places like Yale, Stanford, Georgia Tech. There's a whole bunch of schools that are hard to get into, or is it Georgia State? I can't remember which one. But these universities, UCLA, for instance, all fell into scandal because of people falling prey to lying and doing something deceitful. And unfortunately, there's several qualified students who weren't able to get in. But now USC is offering that open door because they had to. They kind of got to. Now they got to go look for qualified students because now they got a bad rep on them. But this bad rep actually looks good for them. So on this American Greed, I love the fact that they threw in how we all lie. They threw in that we pretty much all lie, but we still believe we're good people. You know, I've talked about that before as with other people about being a child. And sometimes the right lie saves you trouble. Like I was a kid and I remember like if my mom asked me if I drank ginger ale, she gonna hate me for this one. If my mom asked me if I drank ginger ale at one point in her life because she loved her ginger ale, and her Canada Dry ginger ale, and I love ginger ale too. Don't get me wrong, I love that stuff. But if I hadn't touched it and I said no, I was probably going to get in trouble. But if I had touched it or hadn't touched it and I said yes, I did, she'd be like, oh, okay, all right. At least you told me the truth. Now, essentially, me lying to her was better than me telling her the truth. As you saw, because me telling her the truth, she didn't believe it at that time. It's just at that time. Now, this happens also in relationships. A lot of times, we lie to our significant other so we don't hurt their feelings or so that they feel good about themselves. We lie in certain aspects just to appease other people. But we feel we're good people for doing that. We still feel we're good people. I mean, there's no harm in those little white lies. But are they? Is there? According to the psychological study, the more we lie, the easier it gets for us to lie. The harder it gets for us to tell the truth. And I wondered why it's been so hard for me to consistently say, I want to tell these people straight up the truth. And I have to dig it out of myself all the time. I have to pull it out from myself when it comes to telling stories and different things that I don't want to tell y'all, and I do. You know what I mean? I don't want to tell y'all, but I know I need to tell y'all because I know it needs to be out. I know I need to put it out there in public because there are other people like me that sense and feel the same things I do and live through things like I have. And it's important that we share that with each other because when we share that with each other, we help each other grow and strengthen each other. We strengthen our communities. And that's what I believe humanity is all about. And I know some people out there lying about being taken advantage of in their life. People do lie about it, and it's sad because there's a lot of people who have been taken advantage of in their life. And those people I'm sad for, and I've been taken advantage of in my life too. I mean, not all of us have been protected in our lives by the lifestyle we've led. And I've taken advantage of people in my life as well. And it's come back to haunt me. I know that for a fact. We've all done it in some kind. I mean, many of us have done it in some kind of way and don't even know it. Because it may be acceptable in that social scene, in that social scenario. But it goes back to this TED Talks, and I'll put the links down for this in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. This TED Talk by Dan Ariely. I should have got his name. Should have listened for his name. I didn't do that. But I think it's Ariely. And Dan Ariely talks about reasons why people lie, reasons why people cheat. And he says that all people lie. And most of us believe that there are acceptable lies. And I know I haven't talked about a book yet. We're going to get to that in a little bit as well. But I needed to get to these acceptable lies first because it goes back to most of us believe that there are acceptable lives in our mind, our heart, and our soul. And reality, is there? I mean, is there really acceptable lies at all? I don't know. I can't tell. I can't say it. You know, I mean, so I don't know. I'm going to do a little, see what happens here. Okay. Looks like the gambling works down there. But if there are acceptable lies, it's something that society has accepted. And for those who don't know, when I mean a little gambling there, I was actually typing something on the screen and it popped up in the chat. And in the chat, those who are listening in, it pops up in the chat. The chat is actually projecting on the screen now. So I did a little gambling in the chat. Those who come and become a part of a Mixer crowd. And if you get a little bored, you can do a little gambling in the chat and win you some points, win you some Rio bucks when I rename it. So, you know, that's the whole point. Rio bucks be coming out. We'll be rolling out the Rio bucks, which will help you get points and gain points that by a certain point in my stream, I'll start to do giveaways. And within those giveaways, it'll cost points to be involved in those giveaways. And we'll be seeing people win stuff. So that's what I'm getting to, you know, and that's why I like to have this push button music coming, because I want to be able to have things to stream in between and things to give out to the community so the community can grow. So, like I said, this is Doc Rio. We're going to keep talking more about why people lie and the fudge factor. You see, Dan Ariely was talking about there is a kind of social fudge factor involved in this. Society has deemed it acceptable that we can fudge. And some of the factors that lead to this fudge factor are, one, he said there's like 12 elements that lead to this fudge factor. And one is that everybody's doing it. Two is that it's a conflict of interest, meaning, people like referees, they use this in American Greed. Referees who they can't bet on something, but they can tell somebody else to bet on something, which is not legal. It's not legal. Just because you know something are involved, you're actually breaking a fine line. Forget about that. I've even grabbed swag without asking. I got in trouble for that once. I'm not hurting anyone. That one's a big one. Grabbing swag's not hurting anyone, but grabbing swag did hurt somebody. It hurt somebody. It hurt the person that was in charge of the swag because they felt like I couldn't come to them and ask them for it. You see what I mean? Just because it wasn't going to be missed, it was about to be given out to hundreds of people just like freely, and I could have gone 3 hours later and got it from them free from their hand, didn't mean that I had the right to go and grab it in advance. You see what I mean? I'm not hurting anyone or lying for others, lying to protect others. I know some people that lie for others to protect others, and they're actually the people that are damaging them even more. Lying for creativity, reasons of creativity, lying for lack of supervision, lying for social norms. Well, that's a crux. If there's societal fudge factor is lying for social norms, then this upon this is interesting. And then because you're distant from the crime, because you weren't really involved, that goes back to that referee stuff. Because you did it, you told somebody else something and you didn't really do the crime. They did the crime by gambling it. Or you told somebody about something and they went and did the crime, but because you told them about it that they did it. Because you're distant from the crime doesn't mean it's not wrong. Self-deception. Whoa, that's a big one. Wow. I've been known to deceive myself a few dozen thousand times. Notice I said dozen thousand, times there. I think we've all deceived ourselves unintentionally. Matter of fact, I deceived myself. I was telling you I would come back and tell you about something that I did. I unintentionally lied to my boss just recently in the past 3. I just got this job and unintentionally lied to my boss. And let me explain that, because I was sure I knew this particular regulation. You see what I mean? I was sure I knew it. All right. And I thought this regulation extended everywhere across campus. And however, I later found out I was wrong, and that this particular department that I'm in now doesn't have to worry about that particular problem. So when I found out about it, I had to tell her. I couldn't hold myself back. I'm right in front of her. I'm looking down at something. I said, I thought I had to tell her straight up. I was just like, hey, I thought this was impossible. She goes, no, we don't have to deal with that. I was like, I'm sorry, then I lied to you. And she laughed. She laughed about it, but from my heart, I felt like I was being truthful. And when I found out I was wrong, I had to confess up. I had to let it out. And that's one thing I'm fighting for the right to say when I'm wrong to people, and living with that. Living with that is the hardest part, because living with the fact of being wrong, or living with the fact of making less, or living with the fact of taking less for something you've done just to be right, fighting for the right to be right. Maybe a person is worth $40,000 an hour in what they do, but with 40, if they are just taking it just to take it out of greed, then is that right? But if they're taking it because they are paying other people, they are building for other people, they are establishing things for other people and making other people lives happier and building other people's lives, that to me is fighting for the right. Maybe a person is only worth $5,000 an hour. Your worth has to do with what you deem as worth, but hopefully you're fighting to do it right. You're fighting for the right. This book right here is the book for the day. It's Pitch Anything by Oren Klaff. I don't know what's the best way to pronounce it, but I should know. I've read this book a few dozen times as well, and there's some things in here that actually fit for this lesson. And the reason why I left it last is because it's interesting. I kind of needed to lay out the rest of it for you so you can understand where I'm coming from. When I say something about Pitch Anything, he talks about conversation. And I've been laying out that we need to converse, we need to connect more, we need to be involved in each other, and we need our frames to connect with each other. But sometimes those frames don't work well together. And like I was saying before, sometimes a mentor will come in and their frame understands a bigger picture than ours. And we need to accept what the mentor is saying so that we can grow into that frame and build our frame bigger. But it says here, we interpret the world through our frames. And when we do, something else happens. Our brains process what our senses tell us and quickly react with a series of questions. Is it dangerous? Should I eat or mate with it? This is that croc brain again. I was telling you, we got two brains, the croc brain, the reptilian brain starts to worry and starts to get that fight or flight mode. And so in that, the croc brain is doing its work, doing what it does best, detecting frames, protecting us from threats, and using dominance and aggression to deflect attacking ideas and information. We all tend to do that. This is what happens when conversations get together. We end up colliding. We end up running into each other, and things becoming frames collide. You know what I mean? Frames collide and we don't understand each other. We end up either arguing more, or it takes longer for us to actually communicate what we're attempting to convey. The message gets garbled, and then we either have to change the message in its translation or mold the message to keep down the frustration, the pain, and the anger that's starting to build up. I got a friend of mine. Speaking of that, he gets offensive. He gets offensive when we talk, and I don't know exactly why he gets defensive. I don't understand it, but I'm starting to understand a little bit more that sometimes the way I say things through my dominance makes him frustrated and makes him feel like he's lesser. And it's because my frame at looking at things is different than his. His frame is looking at it from one stage, and I may be looking at it from my experience and my years of experience, and he's looking at it from his years of experience. But what fits for me may not fit for him. And if that's the case, then that's just the case. And so I'm easy about taking that what fits for him doesn't fit for me, but for him, it's not the same. And sometimes in the way I say certain things, it feels like I'm condescending to him. And so in that, knowing that my frame is that, sometimes I have to realize that when his frame is coming back, and I sense that his frame, because I'm one to sense that his frame is coming back with this perspective, even though I've already said that for me, this is the way it is, then sometimes I got to back off and let his frame dominate. And when I let his frame dominate, it's all easy pickings. I mean, when I say easy pickings, it's an easy conversation. We're actually conversing. We're actually communicating for a while until there's something that I need to dominate. Honest with you, this is where whenever there's something I need to dominate, it's too much. So in a lot of cases, I need to let it go. And some people aren't meant to be argued with, as life says, because we will continue to fight for dominance until one of us is satisfied or one feels we are satisfied. When two or more people communicate in a business setting, this book says, when two or more people communicate in a business setting, their frames square off. Both will fight for dominance. Oren says that. Oren says both will fight for dominance. You know, and so in that, he talks about a few things after that, which I find pretty interesting. He talks about how this dominance is detrimental to the conversation. He talks about how this dominance could affect the world we live in. And I was looking too far down, so I had to remove my mic so you can hear me better. But he talks about, all right, I want to go here and skip a little bit because he talks about how we need to own the frame. And I'm skipping back in this book because it's important to look at how we don't see frames until we're actively involved in them. And when we're actively involved in them, sometimes it's too late. We need to be seeing the frames before it comes at us. We need to be seeing the frames as it comes so that we can maneuver through them and own the frame. You see what I mean? And so today, I've been practicing that. I've been practicing that a lot. And so part of me practicing that is knowing this, that we all use frames. That's what it says in here. Oren says we all use frames. Everyone uses them. There's no doubt in my mind that everyone sees framing in their regular lifestyle. It used to be we only use frames in business settings. What Oren has missed is that ever since social media has come out, is that we've begun to use frames in our personal relationships. Everybody has put themselves in these boxes of perfectness or belief that we have to be perfect instead of just believing that we need to be great. And so instead of fighting for what's right, we've felt like we've had to be fighting for our frame. And if we fight for our frame, well, every social encounter brings different frames together. So if we fight for our frame every time we interact with people, our frame's going to find it combative. And so that makes us more reclusive. And so we have to remember that if every social encounter brings different frames, Oren Clough says that, or every social encounter brings different frames together, that our frame sometimes needs to be subservient or needs to not be dominant in every aspect, because frames do not coexist in the same time or place for long without becoming combatant. They combat each other, they fight each other, and only one frame survives. And the winning frame governs the social interaction. Always happens. Some frame will always govern it. Somebody either has to back down, or somebody has to give in, or somebody has to not give in. Well, somebody has to give in at some point. And if that happens, this is what happens. All right. He says, I love this part when Oren says, when you own the frame, you are positioned to reach. Is that the one I wanted to read? I don't think that was the one I wanted to read. No, it isn't. When frames come together, the first thing they do is collide. And this isn't a friendly competition. It is a death match. Understand that this competition, these frames colliding are fighting for survival. All right. And now I understand why some people get offended when my frame collides with theirs, because they want to fight for their issue. Frames don't merge. They don't blend. And they don't intermingle. They collide, and the stronger frame absorbs the weaker frame. Only one frame will dominate after the exchange, and the other frames will be subordinate to the winner. This is what happens below the surface of every business meeting you attend, every sales call you make, every person-to-person business communication you have, and that's become how we talk to each other now due to social media. Due to the facts of social media, we've started to communicate like that on a regular basis between each other. You know, so whenever I find myself colliding while communicating, I hope I remember that everyone uses frames, that every social encounter brings different frames together, that frames don't coexist in the same time or place for long, that only one frame survives. and that the winning frame governs the social interaction. Sometimes I got to back off and let other frames govern. And sometimes I need to govern. And so sometimes I have to fight for what's right. And so fighting for what's right in this sense means I need to fight either the frame that's governing that's wrong, or I need to fight myself at trying to take over that frame that's actually working. Are you fighting for dominance? Are you fighting for dominance? And are you fighting for dominance for the right reasons? We should probably ask ourselves this every day. All right. Let's remind ourselves. Let's remind each other. Let's get out there. I think we should be asking this of ourselves each and every day. And so let's get out there and ask each other in our community. Let's try to remind each other, and let's get out there and make it happen between each other. This is Doc. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Stay tuned as we come back next week with another episode of In the Hot Box with Doc Rio, as I build another lesson for you, as we put together some of these ideas that help us as media creators, help us as individuals, help us as a community grow, become stronger, become better streamers, and become a better people in our own community. Remember, you got to fight for inspiration. Fight for that inspiration. Fight for the right. This is Doc. I'm out of here. Stay tuned for more Doc Rio TV. Peace.
There it is. If you need to reach us on Facebook, it's at doc.rio, yeah. On Twitter at DocRioRants. On Instagram, the picture way. And every time I come, I'm here to stay. Snapping photos and get it right. It's at Doc Rio tonight. Say, on YouTube, you can't stop by Doc Rio TV. That's where you see me. That's where you see me. Hit us up on RioBucks.com. Yeah. Back to your regularly scheduled program now. Peace. I'm out.
Doc Rio TV.